Hi, Rashaye. So I just opened up your soccer ball here. Beautiful job on this. Usually don't expect such quality on the first model, but as you said, this is the second time around. I can see you're using the cycles render. Generally, in the beginning, I discourage using cycles and just to use the blender render because it'll give you a better idea of what your model is going to look like in game. But since you've used that for the second one too, we may as well go into it. So here I'm just we'll switch over to rendered, take a look. And see you got specularity on here. Looking really nice. Switch back to solid and I'm going to hit tab. Go into the edit mode. Take a look at the geometry. So it's pretty dense. Looks like you've extruded out from this sphere. Yeah, using cast. So if I go back to camera by hitting 0, I could see if you want to increase the size of this little box that they're showing you, you can just middle mouse roll, make it a little larger. But if I go in now and I middle mouse and hold it down, it's going to zap me out of the camera. If you want to keep the camera and line it up a little better, what you can do is hit this little plus sign over here and go down to view and lock camera to view. And this way I can move the camera around the object and get it exactly where I want. And I'm going to just hit render here, F12. Okay, and I can see doesn't really have lights set up, and we've got a lot of what they call fireflies here, which is a rendering problem that we might want to get rid of. So I hit escape to get out of that. And I'm going to take a look at your nodes here that you've got set up for the material since you're using cycles. So let's go into nodes. Looks like something's overlapping here. Yeah. So you got your diffuse, which is black for these parts, and your shiny glass shader, and they're mixing for the two of these. You got your mix shader and then your output. Okay, so it looks like what you did is you got the white shader here applied to the white areas, those white faces, and the black one applied to the black faces. So that's great. Again, this wouldn't translate into a game because it's using these faces that were selected and it's using vertex painting, which wouldn't translate. You would lose. I mean, you can do it, but it's kind of beyond the scope of this. And you would rather use a texture. You could use a small texture even that was 8 by 8 pixels. One part with black on it and another part with white, and you just assign those parts from that very small texture, and that would work in a game engine. I mean, vertex coloring does work within game engines, but it's usually used as an external thing to paint on top of textures. So with this guy, I just want to hit render again, and let's get the lights set up. I think what's causing a lot of these fireflies too is that you're using a glass shader, which if you want it to still be very shiny, you can do that, but you could use a glossy shader rather than a glass within your nodes. But we could, if you did want to use the gloss, I'm going to go hit 7 on the number pad here and just create a plane, scale that up, hit 1 to get a front view, and just bring that down. a little bit. There we go. Scale it up a little more. Okay, so let's check out this light. It's a point light, default. Let's change it to an area light. And how an area light works, you got your size parameters here for a rectangle. Let's increase that so we can actually see it. There. Oop, that's a little too big. How about right about there? Okay, and then I'm going to rotate that. So 7, we're still in the top view. And I'm going to hit R, and we can point that right at the soccer ball. Okay. And we can pull it back a little bit more if we want. There we go. Then let's go back to the camera by hitting 0. And I am going to hit render again just to check it out. Okay. Yeah, and we've got lots of fireflies, and it's a bit low. So I'm going to use nodes here for the light. And if we switch over to nodes, you'll see them in here. There we go. And this is our light. Okay. Just very simple. I'm going to increase the strength up to, let's say, 500. Do another render. That's a little better. And you can see you got this nice soft shadow. If you want a hard shadow, hit escape here. Get that lined up a bit better. If you want a hard shadow, you can go back to your light settings. I'll hit 7 so you can see it. So here's that light. And if we shrink that down, and we'll hit 0 on the number pad, go back to our camera, hit F12, and now you see that the shadow is much sharper. So what it's doing is emitting light just from that small rectangle there, but it emits it from the entire surface of that rectangle. So here we'll get a really nice soft shadow on that, which is pretty realistic. I'll hit 0 on the number pad, F12 again. Let's get a quick render out of this, and there we've got a really nice soft shadow, realistic soft shadow, where it's sharper here where it's closer to the object, and then as the shadow goes off it gets less sharp, which is very accurate. And let's check out what we have for samples under camera. You got your samples, your sampling, set only to 10, which is really low. It's also set for the preview. We can increase that to 20. Whoops. 20, there we go. And we'll check that out. It'll take a little bit longer, but we still have those nasty fireflies. So another thing we could do, or try, still under camera here, let's go to our light paths, and we could turn off the caustics. Let's see what that'll do. There we go. So by using a glass shader, it was those caustics were causing a bit of a problem. Still a bit grainy. One thing too, under the camera again, for our render presets, we got the size, the resolution. It's set to 1920 by 1080, so that's what they call 1080p. And this is by default set to 50%. So really it's only half that. So if you want this actual size, you always have to bring that up to 100%. So if I hit F12 now, you could see the render is taking a little bit longer because it's rendering out that actual size, 1920 by 1080. And we still got a bit of grain here. I'm going to hit escape to stop the render. And hit escape again and go back to here. What we can do is sampling presets. We could increase this. I'm going to try something a little different. We could filter glossy. So I'm just going to set that to 0.5 and give that a shot. F12. Didn't seem to do much. Okay, hit escape on that. Another thing that we could do to reduce the grain a bit, I'm going to hit escape here. There we go. Is use multiple important sampling, which is under our camera. I think it's down at the bottom somewhere. It's under setting. Oh, it's not under camera. It's over here under world, and here's settings. Multiple importance. Okay, well, let's change the resolution to 1024. And let's hit render again. That didn't do much at all. Still noisy. So I'm just going to go and do the old default. Increase our samples. Also, I should be running on my GPU instead of my CPU. It's a little quicker, depending on your graphics card. Yeah, so let's see. Bounces. Samples. Where's our samples? Right here. Just going to increase that to 100. It's going to take a little longer, but let's try it out. So F12. Oh, baby. That graphics card is really fast. It's just one of the, it's like 1060 NVIDIA card. But there we go. That's looking really nice. Yeah, so if you're using cycles, there's a few things to check with your camera, with your lights too. I like this render quite a bit. That's looking really good. But with these settings, you get a pretty good render. So great job, and take care, Rashaye.